system. And so as we think about these macro trends, they're really informed and influenced by where we see the future of health going. And if we think about how COVID has accelerated that in some ways and actually slowed it down in others, we'll talk about with the panel those various elements that are actually contributing to the macro trends or actually accelerating them in different various paces. And as we think about, there's going to be a numerous amount of examples about how COVID accelerated some things. If you just look at virtual health, we all know, as Robin described, do-it-yourself health, we all had to go to virtual health with our providers, right? And so if you think about 3,400% increase in virtual health from pre-pandemic to through the pandemic, the problem is we're going back to pre-pandemic levels. So we have to do it in a very much more organized, collaborative way, and that's where these trends come in, right? So there's 5 trends that we really see. The first one is really around interoperable data. And if you think about the notion, and I walked the North Wing yesterday, and a lot of our fellow panelists here are there with their organizations. There's so much innovation happening, right? And it's all around data, right? And the only way we're going to get to the future of health narrative, absence of disease, the way we think about the archetypes and how we think of data sharing, we have to have radically inoperable data. And that is a keystone. As we think about the North Wing and how all those innovations come together, they have to be collected on a platform that's radically inoperable. So that's macro trend 1. The second macro trend is really around equitable care. Nothing has been more illuminated in the pandemic on the disparities of care. As a clinician, I saw that the entire time I practiced, right? But what it's allowed us to do is now to see it very clearly, the impact on inequities of care. And not only because it's the right thing to do, it's because it is about how we're going to have affordable care for all. And if we think about a Kaiser Foundation health plan study, $134 billion can be saved if we actually can eliminate the racial bias that's embedded in all of our systems across the entire ecosystem. It's so important to Deloitte that we actually started a Deloitte Health Equity Institute that is committed to that very nature. And so if you all want to look that up, it's actually we're going to have a profound impact through the ecosystem partners that we have to help really move the needle on racial inequity. And as all of our organizations think about health and we think about how our contribution to ESG is going to be as that narrative continues to be louder, the S part of that is not just racial inequity, it's about health inequity. So that's a big piece of this. The third macro trend is about what we're all doing here in Vegas is the empowered consumer. It's about the individual having choice, as Robin said. It's about the individual owning their data. It's about the individual deciding who they give their data to, what that data is used for, and how they coordinate their care and their well-being based upon being an empowered and informed consumer. The fourth is around consumer behavior change, and this is my favorite because I think this has the potential to really, really drive us from sick care to well care. And as I think about all the different gadgets that I personally use, I'm on day 4 of Noom, so I'm hoping that Noom is going to help me lead a healthier life in FY22 or 2022. If I think about the statistics of getting the data to make us have informed behavioral nudging is really powerful. And I think about, there was a study by Whoop around sleeping, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about sleeping with David around how we think about if you have the data and you know that alcohol before bed impairs your sleep, caffeine before bed, screen time, using that data to make behavioral changes, and it had a significant impact. And then I'd say the fifth and final one is our scientific breakthrough. Science was the winner of the year this year as it took us through this pandemic. As we think about science, not just in pharma science, we think about regenerative medicine, $42 billion of regenerative medicine over the next 10 years. That's going to disrupt everything we know. If I can regenerate a better kidney instead of having a kidney transplant, it's going to disrupt the healthcare ecosystem as we know it. And so, in 5 minutes, those are the 5 macro trends. We're really excited about the rest of the panel and all the work that they've been doing that support and advance these trends. And I'm just really excited about where we're going, Robin.
That was a lot to do in 5 minutes, Lynn. That was a really good setup, but Lynn talked a lot about data. Data has to come from somewhere. So here, with the updated precision sensor chip report, is Stephen LeBoeuf from Valencell to tell you how they've spent their past 2 years.
Oh, I gotta tell them my whole past few years?
I told you.
Oh, Lord. Y'all, my name is Dr. Stephen LeBoeuf. I'm one of the founders and also the president of Valencell. And Valencell is an interesting company in the wearable space, the biometric wearable space in particular, because we traditionally don't make our own wearable devices. We make technology that goes in those wearable devices to give those wearable devices the ability to accurately measure a variety of biometrics. And one of the biggest trends we're seeing now in the space, and we get to see these things because we're providing technology to companies who are making solutions, as we get to see what solutions are coming out there, in some cases a long ways out there, and understand where that marketplace is going and the technology and R&D is going. And one of the big trends we see is this convergence of consumer wearables and medical devices. And this peanut butter chocolate combination to make this better candy bar of a solution, a better solution in public health, that also reduces cost to the system. And we see more examples of this, and I know y'all are familiar with a few that are really real now. You know, one example is arguably AliveCor, who's really kind of one of the founding innovators of this ECG technology in the consumer medical front, and how they found to get into the physician workflow and generate a product that's a consumer level medical device product regulated, that has consumer benefit and medical benefit and also helps drive down cost. Another example in the marketplace here might be one of our partners, Sana Health, who's developed a technology for pain reduction. It's a wearable pain reduction technology that really works. It works off light. They use our technology to get the dosing right for this. But it's a regulated product in the marketplace that you can acquire for the purposes of pain management and pain reduction. So now we kind of cross that chasm, and we see a lot more companies being willing to deal with the regulatory aspect of a wearable device. Another example in the space might be a company like Level Health, which simply what they do is they kind of just buy these CGMs, provide them to folks, and then allow you to measure your glucose for consumer level aspects. And understand how your glucose is affected by your lifestyle changes. Now, Valencell, ourselves, we've taken a direction where we've decided we want to focus a lot of our technology on solving the hypertension problem, because it's a huge problem. We're all aware of that big problem in the United States. And so we've developed this technology that allows wearables now to measure your blood pressure accurately, just like a cuff, with the same level of accuracy, but also without a calibration required. And we're now in our discussions with the FDA about how to get that in the marketplace so that this can be part of wearable devices in the near future. Starting with finger-level technology, where you might have for example, have the sensor in a wrist-worn device, where you place your finger on that device, or in a finger clip, for example, or a mobile phone. And so a lot of the discussions and a lot of insight I'll have for y'all in here will be really related towards those type of trends. Thank you all much.
And remember to ask Stephen, his toughest year was actually reinventing the supply chain, which is a whole nother subject we won't go into.
Oh, Lord, yeah. You want to talk about supply chain woes? Talk to me.
Right, and which faces this industry's movement forward. So up next, we have Mireille Typhoon. I ran into Mireille actually here and was so wowed by do-it-yourself health that invited her to say a few words today. Good.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mireille, the co-founder and the CEO of Vivu. Vivu is a wellness platform that guides users to a healthier lifestyle based on their body's needs. And we collect body data with a simple urine test. I brought one. It's clean. Looks like this. So the easiest way to understand, it's an Apple Watch, but not for your arm. It's for your pee. And it's not for your steps, it's for your hydration, pH, ketones, magnesium, calcium, vitamin C, and other metrics, in total of 12 right now, which we launched yesterday. When we started Vivu, our end goal was to basically transform the experience of wellness tracking. I did all the tests out there, and I respect them all. They're amazing. 23andMe's, Viome's. Yes, I did Viome. It was fun. My Oura Ring, my Whoop, and everything, but there was always a missing element. So we basically analyzed the market, and we saw in the one end, there are wearable devices that are super easy to use. You can wear and go, but the data is limited and not super engaging after a while. And on the other hand, and there are tests like 23andMe, Viome, Everlywell, but you have to collect your sample at home, which is not super pleasant, send it to a lab, and wait for a month, at least. And what we wanted to do is to find something in between, easy to use as wearables, but providing deep insights as a lab test. And that's how we came up with Vivu. We worked with urine tests before, but the standard urine test, 10 parameters, wasn't enough. So now we expanded it to more, so you can track your calcium, magnesium, vitamin C. These are groundbreaking because 60% of America is deficient in calcium, 70% in magnesium, estimated to more than 30% deficient in vitamin C. And these are linked to so many chronic diseases, so many vitality, performance-related metrics, and now you can track these at home. By the way, we're downstairs, and can I give the booth number? Is it? No worries. It's 8702, and we're giving free sticks. You can try yourself. And the grand vision here is just like Jetsons, I say. If you saw the Jetsons, you wake up, you go to your kitchen, and a machine gives you what you need. It can be your pills, it can be your supplements, it can be your meal, tailored all for your body's needs. And we're really excited to start the first step with a simple test like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my word of advice, I used the test this morning. Don't use it in Vegas. It's not a good idea. Use it when you're out, when you've left. That liver stuff, not so great. But seriously, fabulous work. And I'm going to move on to, yesterday down on the show floor, I made a digital twin of myself at the Dassault booth. And I thought about the importance of, anybody who came from playing The Sims knew that you could play what if. What if would happen if I would do this to a city, to a car, to a person's body? And so John McCarthy is going to talk about Dassault and what is going on downstairs in their booth. John?
Thank you. So good morning, CES. Many of you may have heard of Dassault Systems from the cool stuff we do with cars. Those BMWs down the hall, they're designed with our software. But over the course of the last 10 years, we've been working in the life science space. And what we think is beyond a digital twin to a virtual twin. What does a virtual twin mean? Well, I'm going to have a video run behind me. I'm not going to speak to the video per se, but it's going to have some illustrations of what we mean when we think about a virtual twin. A virtual twin is taking the data that we collect, the real-world data, the real-world evidence, and applying to it models that are peer-reviewed, scientifically valid models to better allow us to understand what's taking place within the human. What does this allow us to do? It allows us to see and understand the infinitesimally small, how a molecule attacks the spike protein on the coronavirus, to the incredibly large, how a population responds to a particular treatment. So what we do when we think about a virtual twin is how do we help people to create better medicinal products by creating a virtual twin of that product. When the coronavirus broke out, scientists very quickly sequenced what's that spike protein look like. Regeneron took a 3D model of that spike protein and a 3D model of an antibody that they had developed for Ebola, and using our software found out that, hey, you know what? This can help treat patients that have been infected with coronavirus. Equally, we take broader views of the human body, the heart, for example. And with a virtual twin of the heart based on real human heart data, we're able to simulate how a heart performs in a healthy state and a disease state. What this allows companies like Abbott to do is design the next generation TAVR valve replacement, and it allows the clinicians to be able to have a sense of how does that TAVR valve work within their individual patient. When you go to the clinician and you get a CAT scan, they can create a virtual twin of your heart so that they can understand what the best valve replacement is and the best placement for that valve in you is so that you get the best outcome. Virtual twin also applies to the patient in clinical trials. We have 23,000 clinical trials of data of 7 million patients that we've captured. And we're using this data to be able to generate virtual twins of people that have cancers, various types of cancers, and in some cases, very rare disease cancers. So the companies like Autolus, who are developing the next generation of cell and gene therapies, can test their cancer therapies in a cohort that doesn't include those that are in the control group. They create a synthetic control group based on all of this data. And finally, we create a virtual twin of the plant. One of the things that we heard about supply chain challenges, the pharma space had a huge challenge with supply chain as we went through the pandemic. Being able to produce the vaccine locally became something that was quite important. Being able to create a virtual twin of the plant has allowed companies like Eli Lilly to be able to increase their insulin pen syringes by being able to understand how a new piece of equipment that they've procured is going to fit into their plant and turn it on immediately when that equipment arrives, as opposed to waiting for the equipment to arrive, do all of the hookup, the validation, and the regulatory aspects. So we see a virtual twin of going beyond just the data. It gives you the deep understanding of what a twin of your disease, the progression of your disease can do, and how to treat it. Thank you.
All right.
Cool.
You guys are rocking these trends, and I am personally so glad that you have gone into the life sciences, even though I do love your car designs, but so thrilled to see what you're doing.
I'm terrified about what if Robin's digital self gets out in the wild?
Oh, I try. It is on the met. You meet me in Decentraland, Betty, and you will see it there. So what else did we learn during the pandemic? We learned about sleep. We learned that you either slept too much during the last 2 years or slept too little because you were so worried about everything else. But most of all, we learned that sleep was really important to your health. So to dive into the trend about sleep and health, we have John Lawler from Sleep Score Labs.
All right.
Hey, thank you very much,
And we have a
Robin.
cheering team.
Thank you very much, Robin. John is what my mother called me when I was in trouble. Colin is what everybody else calls me. Delighted to meet you. That's okay. Anyway, good morning. Look, right around the world, right this moment, there are people waking up. People who work shifts here in North America, or people in Oceania and Asia who are about to begin their day in the next few hours. And literally half of them everywhere are tired when they wake up. They're tired children, they're tired adults, and everybody in between. And why does it matter? Well, thankfully, and you're absolutely right, Robin, the pandemic has illuminated this challenge. But it actually matters. And the challenge has been, well, how do we actually improve it? So we founded Sleep Score Labs, which we spun out of ResMed, the largest respiratory care and sleep medical devices company in the world, and set out on a mission to improve sleep at scale for billions of people by connecting the dots using the technologies. And we start with a very simple principle: we got to measure it if we need to manage it. And what's so exciting when we look at these trends is every one of these companies are partners in the mission to change the world and deliver better healthcare outcomes. Because the truth is, in order to do that, we have to reduce our focus on sick care and increase the focus on preventative health initiatives and measures. Now, you know, already we're beginning to see that happen. If you go to Europe, the German government has got to be applauded because they have mandated investments by health systems in preventative measures for the first time. And that is the trend, because what we have to do as our population ages and gets older is we have to actually intervene before people get sick so we can reduce the number of people that actually get sick. And you know, today at the CDC, data shows that 7 out of 10 people die in the United States from a chronic disease. For the most part, those chronic diseases are actually treatable. They can be addressed, and in fact, they should probably never have occurred, or certainly not to the severity. So the whole focus is, what do we do to change that? And we believe that sleep is a fundamental part of that, because everybody everywhere sleeps, and how they sleep has a direct relationship to pretty much everything. When I wake up, how I feel, how I look, it has a huge impact in terms of my risk of a road traffic accident or a safety accident at work. It has an impact on my productivity, my creativity, my performance, and if I keep sleeping poorly, it results in a significant increase in pretty much every major chronic disease, and we now have the data to show those things. We have to model those more so that we can get that more precise, but the technology is enabling us for the first time to see that poor sleep causes some of these chronic diseases, and when you have one of these chronic diseases, good sleep is essential to enable you to be compliant with care. So we connect all of those dots by, first of all, measuring sleep at scale and using the data and the science to understand, number one, what interventions, whether they are behavioral or whether they are health screening or whether they are lifestyle changes, or whether they are medical in nature, is needed in order to help a person to sleep better and over time to make a difference at scale to billions of people. And what we've been doing is partnering with great companies. We spun our company out of ResMed, so companies in the medical sector, all the way through to a partnership with Mattress Firm, the largest retailer of bedding in the world, and also with International Flavors and Fragrances. And we have been focused on understanding, using science and data, exactly what sleep interventions deliver, exactly what impact on which people. And that's when we then bring it all together. So as we have more and more devices collecting more and more data, we increase the resolution and the quality of that sleep data, and then we use that to deliver targeted, personalized intervention that work, and they deploy those at scale through those partnerships. And we're really, really excited, because once we begin to make progress on this, like we have been doing over the last number of years, we can actually change the world by actually reducing the risk of chronic diseases, which then helps us to solve the final problem. We don't have enough healthcare providers in the United States, or in fact in anywhere in the world, to provide for an aging population which continues to get sick. We have to stop that from happening earlier. We have to work with employers, we have to work with health plans, we have to work with consumer products companies, and we have to connect the dots to solve the problem so that we have less pressure on a system which is already under too much pressure, and we have another decade or 2 decades of challenges ahead. So we believe that sleep is a key part of that, and we work with companies to focus on data and science to solve it. Thank you.
Okay, for the scorecard, let it be said, Colin. And for those of you keeping up with the scorecard, you've heard the macro trends from Deloitte, you've heard about precision sensors from Valencell, you've heard about do-it-yourself pee kit testing to determine your urine and as a determinant of health. We've talked about virtual twins with Dassault Systems. We've talked about sleep. And now for our last trend, I want to bring up Beth McQuestion from Abbott Labs. Now, Abbott, as you all know, and we should give a round of applause, are the reason we're keeping healthy here. But they're doing so much more. Beth is a neurologist, is that correct? And is working on something that knocked our socks off on the show floor. So we asked her to say a few words. Beth?
Hello, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to put this here, build some suspense, and I'll tell you about it in a little bit. My name is Dr. Beth McQuestion. I am here representing Abbott. Abbott is a global health tech company, and what we do is we really enable human-powered health, which is so important, putting healthcare in the hands of patients. I'm a neurologist, and also I'm a dietitian, so I loved hearing about the nutritional talk earlier today. And what we have done at Abbott is we have developed a blood test for the brain. Specifically, we're looking in the area of concussion. So before I go into more detail, I'd just like to ask the audience, make this a little interactive. How many of you out there have possibly ever had a concussion or been diagnosed with a concussion? If you could raise your hands. So a huge number, including people up here. Keep those hands up, getting your exercise here. Who in the audience has known someone that has had a concussion?
I've caused a few.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll step over to this side of the stage.
They were all accidents.
So as we saw, everybody raised their hand. And that is why I'm here today. Everyone in this audience raised their hand because either they had had a concussion, thought they had had a concussion, or knew someone that potentially had a concussion. And I can tell you, when I was still working clinically, it's not easy to know, right? If somebody comes in and they've sprained their ankle, you can see that ankle is large. People are limping. It causes them trouble with mobility. When someone injures their brain, your brain has a very hard time knowing that it was injured. When people come in, you ask them a series of questions, not hard questions. You're not asking them in-depth dissertation-level questions. You're asking them, what year is it? What is your name? Where are you? Another thing you'll do is ask them how they feel. And then you assess them for amnesia, and you'll ask them something along the lines of, do you remember if you forgot anything? Are you having memory problems? Well, if you're having memory problems, you don't know that. Your brain has a hard time knowing when it's injured. So over the past 7 years, we partnered with the United States Department of Defense, and they came up with a brilliant way to help evaluate brain injury, and that was with a blood test. And I remember when we started this journey, we would go to conferences and people would say, that's impossible. You can never have a blood test for the brain. You have a blood test for the kidneys, you have one for the heart, you have one for the liver. It's impossible for the brain. Well, I'm here to tell you that we made the impossible possible, and I'm going to show you right now what we have. This is now FDA cleared. It's available in the United States. This little device, if you guys can see that.
Is that what causes the concussion?
No, no. Again, stepping away to the side of the stage. So what this is this is a lab. This is a lab. This device, this portable device, you can take this and you get a few drops of, right now we're taking the blood and you spin it just like you do with all your other blood tests. You take 2 or 3 drops of plasma, you put it on this tiny little cartridge here. You put it right here in this device. You leave it. You wait about 15 minutes. You guys have been here longer than that. And guess what? In 15 minutes, you get an answer on whether their brain proteins are found in your bloodstream or not, and how high they are.
That's great.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yes.
Do you want to take one now?
I don't want anyone to know.
We're not going to draw any blood today, but what I can show you is that this is easy to operate. I'm holding a microphone. I'm up on a stage in front of all of you. You hit this button to turn it on. It'll power up. You have a touch screen. Again, you take this cartridge, you put it right in here, and you wait. So now if you do this test and the proteins are not found, that's what you want. Perfect. It gives you as a clinician peace of mind that you can send that patient home. And it gives the patient peace of mind that they can rest and everything's okay. If the levels are present, it serves as a warning bell that more action is needed, and your clinician can take that into account and have nice, objective, rapid information. So how amazing is that?
That's amazing.
That's amazing. The other thing that we're really excited about, this is phenomenal, and now that we have a way to assess, right? Now that you have a way to make the invisible visible, we're looking at using the subjective measurements and assessing treatments. What works to help if you had an injury? And then also prevention, because the best problem is one that you don't have, right? So how can we prevent and keep people safe? So we're working on all of that, and we're really excited about it. Again, this is our iStat Alinity device, this little portable device. It's in use throughout the world, and it's currently being used in the military as well.
All right.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
So, come on, you guys, 30 minutes, 6 great ideas in thought leadership, and we even have time for some audience questions or reactions. Anybody in the audience have a question for our panelists? So I'll bring up another point. For the people who couldn't be here today, one of our very good friends is Jane Sarasan-Khan. She comes from Think Healthy, and she said the most important thing to me about all of this, that and I want you to really think about this, that connectivity is a social determinant of your health. And the more connected you are, the healthier you will be. And so while we're all celebrating the amazing innovation and the fact that this innovation happened in 2 years when people couldn't be together physically, where they couldn't brainstorm on ideas other than over conferences, our next big hurdle is to get this out at price points and accessibility for everybody everywhere, because without this connectivity, we truly have a huge health crisis, as Colin said. So any last thoughts? I'm going to go down the line. Lynn, any last thoughts to leave the trends of 2022?
No, I just think
Thoughts?
we are positioned that we can make radically inoperable data a reality, and we have to, if I think about all the great ideas across the panel, we've got to make them at the point of the consumer and at the point that the consumer can intermix the data in a very natural way.
So yeah, for me, when I think of trends of 2022, I think about like, I hope the mask thing can go away. But at the same time, I like the fact that I can use it as an excuse to wear a mask to the men's restroom and not smell all that crap. All right.
Yay. I think we've noticed in our big data, we've collected about 85 million hours of 30-second by 30-second epoch data across a large population on sleep. And we found, quite interestingly, that there have been some groups of people during the pandemic for whom sleep has improved a little. Those people that don't have to commute anymore, working from home and so forth. So there's more consistency night by night. That's been really interesting. But one group, Gen Z in particular, disimproved. And I want to pick up on your connectivity point, which is really important because during the critical phase of their personal and social development, young people were locked out of connectivity. And I think what we've really got to do together is we've got to make sure that we find ways to address that problem across the board, because otherwise we're going to have problems that go on for decades and decades, right? And so, you know, not only do they need to sleep better and so forth, but what we've found is, you know, that those people have missed 2 fundamental years of their development. And we've got to find ways together to address that. And the fact that we're all here, safe, following the precautions, in person, shows us that there are ways that we can push through and connect again. So I just wanted to make that point from the data. Thanks,
Well
Rob.
taken.
Thank you.
So for me, takeaway that I have is, first of all, through the pandemic, science rocks. Science rules, science rocks. And what we've just all talked about is how we're collecting more and more data and understanding about us so that we're able to build a virtual twin of ourselves to not only better understand the diseases that we have, but how to prevent them from the beginning and how to treat them by understanding how they're going to progress. That brain scan is super cool. We have a virtual twin of the brain as well, and one of the things that we've worked on is traumatic brain injury, and you can see the progression of the disease from people who've had concussions.
Well, so can you like virtually beat your virtual self and see the result?
You can actually do that, and if you'd like to come down, we can show you how to do that virtually or
John, I think something you mentioned is like, it's going to take the entire ecosystem
Exactly.
to come together to solve these problems. And I think we are rich in data, but we are light in insights.
Correct.
And so that is where we all have to collectively reposition our work.
Really good point.
Yeah, I guess education on data and how to share it safely is really important. I'd like to add that. But also innovation should come in an affordable price, like you highlighted. That's a motto for us. Since we launched in 2020, we reached 60,000 users effortlessly because our price point starts from $2 a test. And second thing is, they should be easy to use, because unless it's easy to use, customers don't engage and they don't keep sharing the data, so we can actually improve well-beings through the data and machine learning and AI, etc.
We talked about this, and you have a prenatal version for pregnant mothers coming out. And here on the show floor is the Toto toilet, which does the same thing, just for a lot more money, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you're going to see the elimination of waste materials as a predictor of health by next year at this show, much more often. So I'm going to go to Beth in a minute, but did I see a question from the audience that we missed? I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead.
So we're talking about connectivity. This is not my area. I'm in marketing. So connectivity, marketing, we're going to the metaverse. Everything is connected. So if we apply that vision, do you think that it's possible a future in which there's kind of a system that hosts every person's data combined, all your data combined, so as a consumer or user, I can go and see my 360 data of myself and carry it with me to whatever I want?
It's a great question. We could be here for hours, but the question for the audience live streaming is, what about the metaverse? What does these products look like, and the rest of our portfolio of everything from finance to physicalness? What do we look like in the metaverse? Anybody want to take that one?
I want to make just one point around that. The metaverse and the fact that there are consumer companies, they understand motivation. They understand other parts of people's lives. And we have to remember that delivering healthcare change and disruption has to exist inside people's lives. engagement, interest, and meeting people on their terms where they are, making it cost effective. They're all things we have to do. And it's you know, engagement. We've found it's taken us years to figure out how to engage people with their sleep health. But because we've figured it out, we've delivered better outcomes. We have to do that. The metaverse, the consumer insights, a much broader picture of people's lives and the environment in which they really truly exist is essential if we're going to connect the dots and actually make a difference. I agree with you.
There's a great study of somebody later on a panel of Genentech using Twitch to find hemophiliac boys and target them to be adherent to their medicines because hemophiliac boys tend to like to game. So Beth, 60 seconds, last thoughts. It's all up to you.
Thank you again for the invitation, and I would say the trends and the outcomes from this meeting would really highlight the dazzling innovation that is coming forward, even during a pandemic, and especially during a pandemic. And coming up with a test such as a blood test for the brain really underscores the need for the power of partnership. We get here, as you highlighted, by partnering with others and cross-pollinating and working together as a team. So I would encourage folks in the audience, folks listening on the live stream, reach out, connect with folks, because we all make it better together.
That's right.
Good note to end on. Thank you so much to our live stream audience, to our audience that will watch us in the coming month online, and to our live audience. Stay healthy, use your Abbott tests, and we're going to stay up for one group photo.
All right.
Because these are the rock stars. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.